Welcome to your EMG video instruction manual for your Strike Industries ARK Airsoft gas blowback pistol. This video will be divided up into several sections covering the basics of gas blowback operation, all the way to the more advanced features of the pistol like disassembly and mounting of an RMR. If you're looking for a specific section of the video, check the video description if you're on YouTube and follow the timestamps there to find that particular part that you need to reference. Basic anatomy of the pistol: you have your muzzle. This is where the BBs come out. This upper portion is called the slide. This part is called the frame, and it has the grip and most of the controls on it. Controls include the magazine release, the trigger, and the slide release. The magazine is housed inside of the pistol grip right here, and the magazine is actually what holds your BBs and the gas that powers the pistol. In order to get the magazine out, if you're a right-hander, you're just going to use your thumb and hit this button right here, and the magazine comes right out. If you're a left-hander, you're going to probably have to use your index finger to hit that button right there. It is non-ambidextrous. The magazine is what holds your BBs and your gas. To load BBs in the magazine, you're going to pull down on this tab right here. It's part of the follower. You hold it all the way down, and then it opens up a little portion in the track right here where you can load BBs in. Make sure the BBs stack in a staggered pattern for maximum capacity. Once your BBs are in, you can load it with gas. To do that, you're going to have to take the base plate off of the magazine. Easiest way is to just use your fingernail and grab this tab right here. You can see that lowers that little tab, and there you go. There's the bottom of the magazine where you have your gas fill valve, and that's where you're going to charge it with green gas. You can also use propane if you have a propane adapter. So to fill it with gas, what you're going to do is you're going to hold the magazine vertically with the green gas above the magazine, line up the nozzle with the fill valve, and press down. And you're going to hold for about 5 seconds. It's okay if it hisses a little bit. Then after you're done filling, listen for hissing. If you do hear any hissing, that means you have a leaky magazine. Make sure you watch our video on how to fix leaky magazines. It really isn't that hard. Once it's filled with gas, you can put that base plate back on to protect the valve. There we go. Now, before you go putting a magazine that's full of BBs and gas into a pistol, you need to make sure that you and everybody around you is wearing eye protection and that you're in a safe place to shoot airsoft. Airsoft can be damaging to soft tissues and expensive equipment like television screens, etc. So make sure that your environment is safe to shoot airsoft in before you go putting a loaded magazine into an airsoft pistol. So now that our magazine is full of BBs and gas, we're ready to shoot. I know that this one doesn't have any BBs in it, but we're just going to pretend. We'll put the magazine in like so, and make sure you push all the way up until you hear that nice click, and you can give it a little bit of a tug to make sure that the magazine doesn't come out. That means it is fully seated. Now you'll notice that right now, if I was to try to pull the trigger, nothing would happen. That's because I have not racked the slide yet. You can grab the slide either up here or down here, and you're going to pull straight back and then release. And that will chamber a BB. And then when you pull the trigger, that slide is going to reciprocate. And every time it's loading a new BB and shooting it out the barrel right there. Now when you're all out of ammunition and you pull the trigger, the slide will lock back and show you that you do have an empty magazine. It's at this point that you're going to want to change magazines, and once you load a fresh magazine in, you can pull down on this control right here called the slide lock, and that will let the slide forward. And now you're ready to shoot your next round. Now because I don't have any BBs in this magazine, every time I pull the trigger, the slide is going to lock back. What I can do is I can hold the slide lock down, and now I can cycle the gun indefinitely. I'm going to show you how to access your hop-up. In order to do that, you need to take the slide off of the frame. And before you do, you need to first rack the slide. See how the trigger's in the forward position right there? If it's in the back position, this will not work. So first, rack the slide. Trigger's in the forward position and you don't have a magazine in, that's very crucial as well. You're going to use your thumb and your forefinger to pull down on these tabs on either side of the frame and let the slide off the front of the frame, just like that. So I'm going to set the frame aside for right now, and right here there's a wheel that lets you adjust your hop-up. You can spin that wheel toward the back of the slide for more hop-up and toward the front of the slide for less hop-up. There's a little word that says hop and an arrow that shows you which direction to turn it to increase the hop or the backspin on the BB. So this is as much as you will likely ever need to disassemble your pistol for basic cleaning and maintenance, as well as adjusting the hop-up. You're going to want to lubricate your pistol every once in a while, and good places to lubricate your pistol include the rails right here on the lower frame. Those are high wear areas. If you see shiny metal that looks like it's worn down, you definitely want to apply a little bit of oil, silicone oil, to those areas. I cannot stress enough that you only should use 100% silicone oil on your airsoft products. Another place that you should occasionally lubricate are the valves on your magazine. To do that, make sure the magazine is empty without any gas. To check, you can push on the valve right here, and right now I can push it freely. That means there's no gas. What you should do is depress the valve and use a little bit of silicone oil, just a touch, and get some right there in the main valve and work that valve a couple of times to move that silicone around. You can also apply some silicone oil to this fill valve down here. And that's just to help keep everything nice and lubricated. Those O-rings, once they dry out and crack, they will cause leaking in your magazine. So it's a good idea to keep a little bit of lubrication in there. Before we disassemble the rest of the slide, I did want to show you a really cool feature on the frame right here, and that is this screw right here above the trigger. This is a trigger over travel adjustment screw, and it's a 1.5 millimeter hex screw, and you can tighten it or loosen it to move that screw up and down, and what that does is prevents your trigger from traveling too far. So you can adjust it so that it only travels as much as you need it to break. So that is a really neat feature right there for fine-tuning your airsoft pistol. All right, let's move that lower frame out of the way, and let's just talk about the slide. In order to disassemble the slide, you're going to need to compress the recoil spring, just like this, and take it out. I'm going to set that aside. And now, in order to get the barrel out, from here you're going to push the barrel forward, just like that, and then tilt it to remove it from the slide, just like that. Another place where you should apply some lubrication occasionally is the sealing cup inside of the blowback housing, and you can just pull the nozzle forward until it reveals the cup right there, and just apply a little bit, just a little bit of silicone oil to that rubber cup right there, and then work that blowback housing back and forth a couple of times just to get that silicone oil spread around. All right, let's talk about getting the inner barrel out of the outer barrel. This is a bit of a chore. So the inner barrel here is pretty well stuck inside of the outer barrel, and in order to separate these two, if you needed to change a bucking or something like that, you're actually going to need to pry, very carefully pry the outer barrel away from the inner barrel. So what I would do is I would push the outer barrel back as far as it'll go, and use a small flathead screwdriver and just get it between the inner barrel and the outer barrel right there, and then pry it very carefully while pushing back until it lets me push it all the way out. There we go. Just like so. So it requires a little bit of finesse in order to get these two apart. Now that they're apart, you can change out the bucking if you need to. All right, in order to get the pistol back together, you first need to get the inner barrel inside of the outer barrel, which requires, again, a little bit of prying and finesse. You'll notice that it can only go so far before it gets stuck. And then what I do is I use my thumb to gently pry that housing open, and should slide forward. If it gets stuck, don't be afraid to push just a little bit more, and then it should lock in there just fine. Then once you're there, you can put the inner barrel, you put the barrel assembly inside of the slide like that, and then the recoil spring assembly with the big plastic washer toward the front. Put it in there like that, compress it, and make sure it's nice and centered right there. And then you simply line up the rails with the back of the slide and put it onto the pistol. Test it for function. Click, click, click. Okay, it works. And then if you have a magazine with a little bit of gas in it and you're in a safe place, you can test it. Fill it up just a little bit. Put that base plate back on. All right, it shoots and it locks open. We are good to go. All right, let's show you how to mount an RMR on this baby. So take the magazine out, we don't need that. And you actually don't even need to take the slide off of the pistol. On the top of the pistol slide here, there is a plate with 2 Allen key screws on it, and they are 1.5 millimeters. So you can just use a 1.5 millimeter driver, and a little tight. You can just take those screws right off of there one at a time. Careful not to lose them. These mats, by the way, are a godsend so that you don't lose any small pieces or parts. And once you take those 2 screws off just like that, this plate just comes right off. Let's see if I can make sure you see that. There we go. And that lifts off, and you can see the top of the blowback assembly right here with the spring. Now that spring is just resting in there, so make sure you don't dump it out and lose that spring. That's very important for it to operate. And then you might have noticed that your pistol comes with a small baggie with some screws and O-rings in there. We're going to use those in just a moment. You can take your RMR, and it should just fit right there on the very top of the slide, right over those posts. And it's going to look just like that. So let me set that down very carefully. Get this baggie open. So what you get inside of the baggie are 2 screws and 2 O-rings. Now these O-rings actually go over these countersunk screws, and then these countersunk screws with the O-rings on them go into the spot, the corresponding spots on the RMR. Now these screws are not 1.5 millimeter, these are 2.5 millimeter screws. So you're going to need a 2.5 millimeter driver. And then you just carefully thread those in place, one at a time, making sure you don't lose them. All right, and you snug it down, not too much. Just kind of finger tight, just like that. Nice, there we go. And now you have an RMR mounted on top of your Strike Industries ARK pistol, just like that. Check, make sure that we didn't... There we go, and it locks back. It cycles just fine. So that's how you mount an RMR on top of your Strike Industries pistol. And then, of course, I would hang on to these tiny little screws and this cover plate just in case you decide that you want to move your RMR to a different pistol or don't want to use it anymore. Well, guys, that about covers everything that you need to know about your Strike Industries ARK Airsoft Gas Blowback Pistol by EMG. If you have any other questions, make sure you reach out to us. There's contact info in the video description. You can always reach us through our website as well. Thank you for your purchase. Play hard, play safe, and have fun.